At 64, Michael J. Fox has reached a period of life where a lot of people are talking, and listeners can't help but wonder about his music in light of recent family experiences. His family looks more present than ever, and people are more curious in what is actually going on behind the scenes in music. Come along as we examine the devastating diagnosis that Michael J. Fox and his family have been startled by. Turmoil in childhood. Michael Snorts J. Fox's early years were characterized by a lot of mobility, change, and the necessity to adapt fast. He was a young man learning how to maintain stability in a life that rarely remained still long before he rose to prominence as one of the most recognizable faces in movies and television. The Fox family moved frequently since his father was a member of the Royal Canadian Corps of Signals. Michael had already lived in 5 different Canadian cities by the time he was in his early teens. Every relocation entailed adjusting to new neighborhoods, schools, and kid groups. This would have been too much for a lot of kids. It served as Michael's initial training ground for the abilities he would eventually use on a daily basis. He learned flexibility as well as discipline from growing up in a military home. He knew he had to blend in quickly every time he went somewhere new. He discovered how to watch individuals, figure out what made them feel at ease, and make little connections. His quickest tactic turned out to be humor. The ice was broken with a fast remark or joke. He quickly discovered that he fit in with every new setting by making others laugh. It was more than attention-seeking. It has to do with stability. He could feel comfortable if he could put others at ease. He was able to avoid confrontation, form connections, and bring a sense of familiarity to strange situations by using humor. But he developed more than just his sense of humor. His ability to adapt became ingrained in his character. When things didn't go according to plan, he learned how to alter his direction. He discovered how to maintain composure in the face of uncertainty. Later in life, these qualities would become invaluable. However, even as a little child, they kept him grounded in the face of rapid change. For the first time, Michael had the opportunity to dream about anything long-term when the family eventually made Burnaby, British Columbia, their home. He was a hockey fan, like many Canadian children. He imagined a future on the ice as he played passionately and intensely. But reality crept in as he grew older. At 5 feet 4 inches, he stopped growing, and his diminutive stature made it obvious that a career in professional hockey was out of the question. The realization was quite painful. It wasn't merely a dream coming to an end. The initial iteration of the person he, music, believed he may become was over. Nevertheless, losing that desire led to an unexpected opportunity. Now that hockey was out of his future, he was spending more time pursuing other hobbies. He first became interested in music and practiced the guitar for hours. Then, in a high school drama class, he almost accidentally discovered acting. Curiosity soon turned into something more. He had no trouble acting. He employed the same timing for lines as he had for jokes. He gained confidence on stage from the flexibility he had used to get by in several schools. He saw a road that seemed both fascinating and feasible for the first time. These early setbacks and adjustments didn't break him. They molded him. They helped him develop the mindset that would come in handy when life put him to the test in unexpected ways. And all he had learned during those formative years was just the start of what lay ahead. The reticent superstar. There was no clear blueprint for Michael J. Fox's ascent to fame in Hollywood. He overcame all obstacles, trusted his gut, and remained prepared for any opportunity that presented itself. He had no money, no contacts, and no obvious career when he initially began performing. He was driven, though. It was a combination of chance and perseverance in his early tryouts. With little more than confidence and a keen sense of timing, he frequently arrived for casting calls. These brief pauses resulted in early appearances in movies such as Class of 1984 and Midnight Madness. Although they weren't very popular, they demonstrated to casting directors that he had something worthwhile. He wasn't your average leading guy, but he was charismatic, vivacious, and had a knack of making people listen to his words. When he went to try out for Family Ties, everything changed. Although the parents were supposed to be the main focus of the play, Fox's portrayal of Alex P. Caton swiftly expanded into something much more significant. Not everyone initially thought he was the best option. Fox didn't have the face for a lunchbox, according to the famous statement made by then NBC president Brandon Tartikoff. He didn't think Fox was the kind of performer who could become a cultural icon. However, viewers quickly disproved him after Family Ties premiered. Music, Fox gave a perceptive, humorous, and charismatic performance. Viewers fell in love with Alex's confident, fast-talking style as he effortlessly grabbed situations. Fox's popularity only increased as he emerged as the show's focal point. He sent Tartikoff a personalized lunchbox with the words, "This is for you to put your crow in." The lunchbox remained in Tartikoff's office for years and came to represent Fox's surprising success once he became one of the decade's biggest stars. When he was asked to star in Back to the Future, that victory reached new heights. Family Ties refused to let him off his schedule, even though director Robert Zemeckis had wanted him from the beginning. Fox was called in only after the original actor failed. The catch was that he had to simultaneously film the TV series and the feature. He spent his nights on the film set and his days filming Family Ties. He didn't get much sleep. He lived in a never-ending flurry of labor, eating meals in the car and racing from studio to studio. He never complained, even though it was exhausting. He put his all into the movie because he believed in it. He was unaware that the ongoing physical strain was a precursor to difficulties he would have in the future. His world completely transformed when Back to the Future came out. As a result of the film's global success, Fox came to represent a new wave of Hollywood celebrities. People adored his bright energy, his quick wit, and the way he brought life to every scenario. He became one of the most well-known celebrities of the 1980s, exuding a spirit of energy and exhilaration that audiences immediately identified with. And, music, was getting ready to present him with an unexpected hurdle just as he was reaching this amazing high. That was the year that everything changed. At the age of 29, Michael J. Fox's life took an unexpected turn. He was one of Hollywood's busiest and most successful actors at the time, never slowing down as he went from one movie to the next. At first, it was easy to overlook little changes in his body because of that pace. The initial symptoms appeared to be benign. A tremor in his hand that wouldn't go away, a twitch in his finger. He dismissed it at first, supposing it was fatigue or stress, but the symptoms persisted. There, music became more powerful. They showed up when he couldn't control them. The more he saw them, the more he became afraid. He was aware that something was amiss, but he was unsure of the extent of the problem. The reality was revealed to him in a way that was difficult for him to comprehend when he eventually met with doctors and underwent a thorough checkup. Parkinson's disease was the diagnosis made for him. The diagnosis seemed unattainable because he was young, in excellent physical condition, and at the peak of his career. Parkinson's disease was thought to afflict elderly people rather than those in their 20s. He later acknowledged that he left the office uncertain about how to deal with the future after hearing the startling statements. He was aware that there was no treatment for the illness and that the symptoms would gradually worsen over time. It was not just fear. He was grieving for the life he believed lay ahead of him. One of the most difficult times of his life was telling his wife, Tracy Pollan. They had just been married and were still establishing their future. He didn't want to burden her so much, but when he told her they sobbed together, he couldn't hide the truth from her. They cried about Parkinson's for the first and final time, he subsequently recounted. They decided to face whatever happened next together after that. Tracy's encouragement helped him start to come to terms with what was happening, and her strength kept him steady. He wasn't prepared to tell the world, even with her by his side. For 7 years, he kept the illness a secret from Hollywood. He kept acting constantly at that period. In private, he struggled to control increasingly difficult symptoms, memorized lines, performed scenes, and made audiences laugh. He relied on medicine to control his tremors. Music, in order to look solid on screen, he frequently planned his medication around filming. Even though the effort was draining, he didn't want anyone to think less of him or question his skills. It was exhausting to live this double life. He maintained his cheerfulness and attractiveness in public, displaying the same level of vigor that people had come to expect from him. He endured long nights of anxiety, annoyance, and terror in private. The truth followed him everywhere, despite his best efforts to convince himself that he could continue without disclosing what he was fighting. Every year the emotional burden increased, and the strain of pretending wore him down. And as he battled to keep things together, his internal conflict quickly drove him to a breaking point that would further transform him. Denial and alcohol. Michael J. Fox did what many people do when they are afraid and not prepared to face the facts when they first learn they have Parkinson's disease. He attempted to flee from it. From the outside, his life appeared to be going well. He was working, entertaining, bringing up a family, and maintaining his reputation as a popular actor. However, he was terrified, perplexed, and furious about what was happening to his body and his future on the inside. He reverted to old practices from his wilder, younger years rather than handling those emotions in a healthy way. Michael had led a fast-paced life before to his marriage. He drank a lot, partied hard, and stayed out late. Those times appeared to be behind him once he wed Tracy Pollan. However, booze became a means of escape after Parkinson's disease entered the picture. A portion of the terror was muted by drinking. It made it possible for him to forget about the illness, its long-term consequences, and the knowledge that his life would never be the same. He became increasingly estranged from both himself and the people he loved the more he drank. One night in 1992 was the pivotal moment. After drinking too much, Michael collapsed on their living room couch. There was no shouting or mayhem as he woke up. Rather, he discovered Tracy standing there composed but utterly dissatisfied. She wasn't as furious as he had anticipated. She didn't scream. She only gave him a look and posed a question that pierced through all the justifications he had made for his actions. "Do you want this? Do you want to be like this?" He remembered their words. He had to see himself clearly in that moment. He witnessed a father and husband who were gradually vanishing behind a bottle, in addition to a man suffering from Parkinson's disease. He understood that continuing in that direction would cost him more than just his health. He would lose his identity, his family, and the ability to face his sickness with courage and dignity. He did not choose the illness, but his reaction to it was. He made a choice that altered everything the very next day. He gave up alcohol. Making this decision wasn't simple or an easy solution. The start of a protracted, serious healing journey was sobriety. He began attending therapy, which allowed him to fully express his feelings of rage, grief, and dread over Parkinson's disease. He started to confront his emotions rather than run away from them. He realized in therapy that his behavior had been governed by denial. It also assisted him in developing healthier coping mechanisms. He gained self-awareness, learned to accept assistance, and improved his communication with Tracy and their kids. He accepted accountability for his decisions and remained dedicated to maintaining his sobriety day by day. The emotional base he had lost when he went to drink was gradually restored by these actions. Michael didn't simply quit drinking when he made the decision to be sober. Instead of escaping his sickness, he made the decision to live with it. And as he started to confront Parkinson's directly, his suffering gradually transformed into a mission that would soon extend well beyond his own life. The public disclosed. Michael J. Fox had concealed his Parkinson's disease diagnosis for 7 years by 1998. He put a lot of effort into controlling his symptoms, preserving his acting career, and preserving his family's feeling of normalcy during those years. However, the burden of maintaining concealment was becoming more and more intense every day. He eventually came to the conclusion that concealing the truth was more draining than confronting it. The world was astonished when he eventually made his diagnosis public. Colleagues, media, and fans were unaware of the struggles he had been facing behind the scenes. It was a terrifying and liberating moment for Michael. He didn't need to act fake anymore. He didn't have to bear the weight by himself anymore. Even though he wasn't sure what the new chapter would entail, the news gave him the opportunity to start. Michael made a daring decision shortly after discussing Parkinson's disease in public, which altered not just his own life but also the lives of numerous others. The Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research was established by him. This wasn't just a celebrity charity or a symbolic act. It emerged from a sense of urgency. Michael was aware that the only way to improve care and eventually find a cure was through study. He was also aware that many Parkinson's patients lacked the visibility and resources he did. He believed it was his duty to advance science if he could utilize his position to do so. The foundation soon rose to prominence as one of the world's top institutions devoted to Parkinson's disease research. In a way never seen before, it united patients, physicians, and scientists to build a resilient and optimistic community. Something changed inside Michael when the foundation started moving. The hopelessness that had formerly dominated his days started to give way to purpose. Music, he considered what he could still accomplish for others rather than just what the illness had taken from him. He found focus in sponsoring research, speaking candidly about his everyday problems, and helping to raise awareness. Music, he went from suffering in silence to speaking up. The difficulties of having Parkinson's disease were not eliminated by this new goal, but it gave his life more significance. It enabled him to proceed with clarity and confidence. Knowing that his voice mattered and that his efforts were advancing research gave him strength throughout it all. Additionally, his own physical struggle with Parkinson's became more difficult as he, music, became more involved in campaigning. The internal conflict. Every aspect of Michael J. Fox's everyday life has been impacted by having Parkinson's disease. His grin, sense of humor, and serene demeanor, which the world frequently witnesses, only partially depict what he endures. Behind the scenes, his ability to move, speak, and operate is mostly dependent on medication. Parkinson's disease inhibits dopamine production in the brain, which regulates movement. This implies that Michael must take his meds on a regular basis throughout the day. He can communicate properly, remain mobile, and engage with people in a natural way when the medication is functioning. His body may become rigid and shake when it wears off. He once clarified that properly scheduling his medication is what separates paralysis from mobility. His feelings and capabilities can be altered by even a slight delay. He had to make the tough decision to have athelomotomy in 1998 in order to lessen the severe tremors that were interfering with his day-to-day activities. During the procedure, a tiny targeted lesion was made in the part of the brain that controls mobility. There were actual hazards associated with it, such as trouble with speech, balance, or consequences that might exacerbate his symptoms. However, the tremors had gotten so disruptive that even ordinary activities were becoming hard, so he felt it was worth a try. He felt some alleviation after the surgery. It helped him restore some control during a period when he sorely needed stability, but it didn't halt the disease's progression. Michael has always been transparent about the boundaries of his medical care. He said in his memoir, No Time Like the Future, that he would be frozen, silent, and stone-faced without medicine. Music, this wasn't hyperbole. Parkinson's disease can make it impossible for him to move or speak once the effects of medication wear off. His facial muscles are capable of freezing. His body might not react. Even when he is grinning during interviews or public appearances, he must deal with this reality on a daily basis. His music openness makes it clear to others that the times when he seems stable call for significant work and medical assistance. The illness persisted in progressing over the years. Parkinson's disease progresses slowly, and Michael has managed every new symptom as it has arisen. The shaking intensified. His voice grew weaker, his body tensed, and occasionally he lost control. Music, memory issues also started to arise, which made it much more difficult to act as it had in the past. He has freely said that one of his best abilities from his early career, memorizing lines, has now become difficult for him. He had to adapt and come up with new ways to keep active and communicate after each loss. And as the physical difficulties increased, so would the ensuing mental and emotional struggles. Retirement and coming back. Michael J. Fox was juggling two harsh realities by the late 1990s. On the one hand, he led a popular TV series and shown that he could still command the screen as the humorous, talkative star of Spin City. Parkinson's illness, on the other hand, was stealthily destroying his body. The burden was too much by 2000. As symptoms worsened, it was nearly hard to cope with the long hours, continual movement, and pressure of being a series lead. He declared his departure from Spin City that year after finishing his 100th episode. This marked his first official acting retirement. It was more than just a professional choice. It was a health-related choice. By stepping away, he was able to concentrate more on his foundation, his family, and finding a more sustainable method to deal with the illness. For Michael, this was more of a pause than a complete stop, but for many others, it might have been the end of their time in the spotlight. He gradually changed the way he approached his profession in the ensuing years. He turned his attention to literature and lobbying. However, he never lost his passion for performing. He started making a fresh comeback to the cinema after nearly 10 years away from significant regular parts. He took on smaller, well-chosen segments that suited his condition rather than handling an entire series. He had appearances in television series like The Good Wife, Boston Legal, Scrubs, and Rescue Me. His Parkinson's symptoms were frequently incorporated into these roles, enabling him to perform without concealing his condition. Every guest role turned into a tiny triumph for the individual. Even when his body limited his abilities, they demonstrated that he was still capable, that his music was still brilliant, and that he could still move audiences. These appearances were more than just a way for him to remain prominent. They aimed to demonstrate that someone with a severe illness could still produce art that had purpose. He made a more significant move in 2013 with the sitcom Michael J. Fox Show, which was partially based on his actual life. The attempt to combine humor with the realities of life with Parkinson's disease was courageous. Despite the short duration of the broadcast, it demonstrated his willingness to be candid and open about his illness on air. However, the illness has worsened by 2019. In interviews, Michael admitted that acting had gotten considerably harder. He had trouble remembering lines because of his poor short-term memory. His previously energetic, rhythmic voice had lost some of its dependability. He was able to speak clearly on some days. On other days, he had trouble. He made the difficult decision to give up acting for good in the face of these difficulties. It was a silent surrender of the conviction that he could continue to perform to the standard he had set for himself, not of his spirit. The part his family played in his life only became more significant and poignant as his time on film diminished. The debate around Rush Limbaugh. Michael J. Fox was one of the most reputable public spokespeople supporting Parkinson's research by 2006. He made advantage of his position to advocate for financing that may hasten scientific advancement, rather than for personal attention. He made an appearance in a political advertisement that year endorsing a Senate candidate who supported stem cell research. The advertisement was straightforward, and truthful. Michael discussed the need of funding research while seated in a chair. The effects of Parkinson's caused his body to move considerably. It was also the first time that many viewers saw the full physical reality of his sickness. He wasn't faking it. He had nothing to conceal. He was sharing with others his experience of living with Parkinson's. Though not entirely positive, the response was quick and powerful. Michael was accused by conservative radio presenter Rush Limbaugh of fabricating his symptoms in order to gain sympathy. He also implied that Michael had deliberately neglected to take his medicine prior to recording the commercial. Those who were aware of the difficulties associated with Parkinson's disease were particularly offended, perplexed, and saddened by the remarks. In addition to being harsh, the charges were incredibly ignorant for Michael and his family. At a time when he was being totally exposed, they doubted his honesty. Michael refrained from reacting angrily. Rather, he calmly and clearly explained the fact. He claimed that he had not missed any of his prescriptions. He had actually taken too much. Dyskinesia, or uncontrollable movements brought on by the drug itself, was the outcome. He gave a thorough account of the circumstances. He was afflicted by the illness without medication, and the treatment had adverse effects of its own. He didn't appear normal in any version of the day. No one with Parkinson's disease wants to be obviously ill, he reminded the audience. A person would never want to exhibit the unpleasant and draining involuntary movements. His explanation was effective since it clarified a significant misconception. Many people were unaware of how difficult Parkinson's treatment is. Medication can facilitate speech and movement, but it can also cause abrupt, jerky movements. There is no simple answer or ideal balance. Millions of people were able to learn about the true nature of the illness and its unpredictable nature because to Michael's candor. His greatest struggles took place at home, or his family had to endure the arduous task of helping him through the last stages of the illness, while the public discussions subsided. Family is essential. Michael J. Fox's family has always been one of the most resilient aspects of his life. Tracy Pollan, his wife, is the focal point of that support. They fell in love and created a life based on cooperation and trust after meeting on the set of Family Bonds. Tracy became his pillar of support after he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at the age of 29. Michael has frequently stated that she provides a non-dramatic power to any circumstance. When things get tough, she doesn't give up or panic. Rather, she concentrates on what must be done and the next steps. In the early years of his sickness, her composed demeanor helped counterbalance his feelings of fear and perplexity. She supported him through every stage of Parkinson's without allowing the illness to define their bond. Sam, the twins Aquina and Skylar, and their youngest child, Esme, were the 4 children they raised together. The children's father was both a well-known actor and a man coping with a challenging neurological condition. They witnessed him at award presentations and on red carpets, but they also witnessed him having trouble controlling his hands or walking across a room. Parkinson's disease was just a part of their household life. It wasn't something that was kept secret or discussed in whispers. Tracy and Michael made sure their kids knew about the sickness and weren't afraid of it. They maintained lines of communication open and provided honest answers to queries, which made the children feel safe even in the face of uncertainty. One of the family's most effective strategies was humor. Michael's sense of humor permeated their home because he has always been fast with a joke. Sharing a laugh relieved tension and served as a reminder that happiness was possible even during difficult circumstances. Additionally, the family relied on honest communication, frequent check-ins, and a readiness to support one another when necessary. No one felt alone in the encouraging atmosphere that these behaviors fostered, including Michael. Although it didn't make the pain go away, their family bond provided them the courage to deal with it together. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment on this video if you liked it.